Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sarah Arshad, roll number 59. I belong to the class BS Chemistry, semester 6. I present the topic of chromatography. Firstly, I describe my context. I describe in this presentation, firstly, introduction, then historical development, types of chromatography, techniques of chromatography, paper chromatography, principle, types of paper chromatography, instrumentation, methodology, modes of paper chromatography, application, recent search, and the last one is references. Introduction. Firstly, chromatography is basically a separation technique. Properly definition of chromatography is defined as a procedure by which solute are separated by dynamic differential migration process in a system consisting of two or more phases, one of which move continuously in a given direction. In this, commonly two phases are used. First is mobile phase and the other is stationary phase. According to this diagram, we describe the chromatography. Then I describe the historical development. Four scientists which developed the chromatography. Firstly in 1906, then 1942, then in 1961. Then I describe the types of chromatography. Chromatography is mainly divided into four types. First is adsorption, then partition, then ion exchange, and then affinity. Then partition is mainly divided into liquid-liquid phase, gas-liquid phase, and then gas-solid phase. Then I describe the techniques of chromatography. Basically, chromatography is divided into two main techniques. Firstly, plane chromatography and then column chromatography. Plane chromatography is then divided into two techniques, paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography. Then I describe the topic of paper chromatography. What is paper chromatography? Paper chromatography is defined as technique in which the analysis of unknown substance is carried out mainly by the flow of solvent on specially designed filter paper. In 1961, paper chromatography was first discovered by Seon Ben. In paper chromatography, flow of solvent occur, and in this paper chromatography, filter paper is used. Specifically, this filter paper is used, which was shown by this diagram. Then I describe the principle of paper chromatography. The principle of separation is mainly partition rather than absorption. Cellulose layer in filter paper contain moisture which act as stationary phase. Organic solvent or buffer are used as mobile phase. Instead of water as stationary phase, other organic solvent can be used by suitable modification. In paper chromatography is also a separation technique. In paper chromatography, partition principle is used. There are two types of paper chromatography: paper adsorption chromatography, paper partition chromatography. And this instrumentation is used, which is shown by this diagram. Then I describe the method of the paper chromatography. In paper chromatography, first we take the chromatogram jar and chromatograph paper. Then I cut this paper. It form a point of triangle. Then I draw a line, 1 centimeter line. Then using a capillary tube, transfer a drop of given pigment. Then I drop the filter paper to the center of start line. Then 1 centimeter of chromatography solvent into the chromatography. Open chromatography jar and hang the paper in the jar. So the tip of the triangle dip into the solvent. Allow the solvent to rise for about is minutes or until the solvent line near the top of paper. When the solvent line is about from the top of paper. Then I describe the different modes of paper chromatography. There are different modes of paper chromatography. First is ascending chromatography, in which the solvent is moved upward, and then is descending chromatography, in which the solvent is moved downward. Then I describe the circular or radial chromatography, in which we use the circle type paper filter paper. And then two-dimensional chromatography. And then I describe two types of analysis. First is quantitative analysis, then is qualitative analysis. In quantitative analysis, there are two techniques used. First is direct technique, and the other is indirect technique. In qualitative analysis, RF value is used. RF value is defined as the distance traveled by the solute to the distance traveled by the solvent. And then Last, I describe the applications of the paper chromatography. Paper chromatography is specifically used for separation of mixture having polar and non-polar compounds. And then for separation of amino acid, it is also used to determine organic compound, biochemical in urine, etc. Sometimes used for evolution of inorganic compound like salt and complex. And then last is references which is taken by this. And the last one is thanks so much.